Very rarely do I feel like kicking the proverbial hornet's nest that is the YouTube gaming audience, but back in 2020 I had to quarantine myself for about 10 days after catching the dreaded icky shticky, and I spent my time getting over it playing the first 3 Uncharted titles. I didn't think particularly highly of the games and made a video explaining myself, but at the end of that video I explained that I would be more than willing to try out the 4th Uncharted game when it found its way to PC. That day has come to us in the year of our Lord 2022, and wouldn't you know, it came when I got sick again. It's not the vid, thankfully, but it's why this video is just slightly behind the curve.
I couldn't very well record a video like this.
Now that I'm more or less better though, let's jump into both Uncharted 4 and the last Uncharted game to yet be released, Uncharted Lost Legacy. Just to give some context, I gave the first 3 Uncharted games flack for not giving due attention to the aspects of their story that were obviously the most interesting, the characters they hosted. The characters did have moments to shine. Uncharted 3 in particular comes the closest to what I wanted with Sully's supposed death, but it never follows through and feels hollow because of it. The focus is always on the mystery of the treasure hunt, how these historical figures hid their mythical lost cities and why they eventually failed. They're cool explanations of lost culture and an interesting interpretation, but it never kept my attention. I wanted more of a dissection of Nate, Sully, Elena, or anyone else they had along for the ride. I am very happy to say that Uncharted 4 completely fixes this for the most part. A Thief's End centers around Nate's long-thought dead older brother Sam. Years after we last saw Nathan Drake, we're shown that he settled down with Elena, but he's not exactly titillated by his life, obviously missing the days of treasure hunting and danger. The next day, his dead brother shows up alive and asks him to restart the treasure hunt that they had given up on back in the day. Sam was broken out of prison by a well-renowned drug lord and his small army. Shortly after this, the drug lord tells Sam that in return for his services, he expects a cut of this treasure he's always talking about in 6 weeks or else. Thus, he went straight to the only person he could trust to help him. Initially skeptical to uproot his and Elena's life, Nate gives his wife a false explanation for why he has to leave for a few weeks. He then goes with Sam and the ever-faithful Victor Sullivan to find this treasure once and for all. Down the road a bit, Sam is forced to tell the truth to Nate. The drug lord never had anything to do with Sam getting out of prison. He was actually bailed out by their old buddy so Sam could help him look for the treasure. After Sam takes a bullet for Nate, who gets thrown off a cliff, Elena and Sully show up to help Nate back on his feet. Sam and Nate reunite and eventually find the treasure, but not before their rivals find it first. In a big climax, the brothers make up and find a way out of their situation, saying goodbye and going their separate ways, closing out the game and making a nice little ending for Nathan Drake's entire character. This story, while not perfect, is an absolute slam dunk compared to the first 3 titles. The way the spotlight is constantly on Nate and Sam is exactly what I've always wanted from these games. Throughout the journey, Nate and Sam reconnect through in-game dialogue, and the player gets to gradually see firsthand the differences between these two. Over the years he's spent in prison, Sam has had nothing to think about but escape, finding his brother, and Henry Avery's treasure. And this has gradually made him obsessive over finding it. Ultimately, he still loves his brother and would do anything to protect him, but there are several times when Sam can be kind of a terrible influence to Nate if it means getting him closer to what he wants.
There's a handle in here or something.
Well, give it a pull.
What? Could be a trap.
You're already in there. What's the worst that could happen?
I lose my hand?
So we'll get you a nice hook. Give it a pull.
Oh my god, that is some... Oh my god, that's some creepy shit, bro.
Egging him on to make more and more risky moves, not calling it quits when they should just walk away, pushing away all of his friends and current family because they're scared that he's going to get himself in too deep this time. It finally made me care about Nathan Drake. The two rough edges that are Sam and Nate often grind against each other, but as unpleasant as it can be sometimes, it also makes sparks just as often. The two love each other, and that's easy to see. Hearing them reminisce while also talking about the life Nate has gotten to live is the best kind of fan service. But it's a double-edged sword because you know that Sam hears all of this as the life he never got to live with his little brother. The dynamic between Nate's past and present is the best thing this story has going for it. I complained a few years ago that I didn't really know much about Nate, and I don't know if I would say this game completely breathes new life into the character, but there are certainly more little things to pick up on here. He's always been a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but the contrast that Elena, Sully, and Sam provide shines a real light on these quirks of his. does. Like how he has to inject a little danger into even mundane situations. Sully is at his most protective here, and for good reason. He and Sam butt heads and have a bit of an uneasy relationship. Sully is probably my favorite character in the whole series after this game. He's such a good father figure for not forcing Nate to make the right call, but always having his back when he sees the error of his ways. Elena is still written faithfully to her other incarnations, and she's a very supportive spouse, but I'm not sure how much bearing she really has on the whole adventure. Still a good integral part of the crew this time. The villains this time around are less amazing, however. I think I'll be inclined to remember Rafe more than I would be inclined to remember literally any of the other head honchos from the other games, but I also don't think he's outstanding. A guy who inherited all kinds of money from his father and wants to claim some sort of glory on his own, and the way of doing this is stealing the work of two actual treasure hunters, but he is more plausible than any of the other schmoes who track an artifact to Nate and then hunt him to a forgotten city. I'll take Rafe over them in a heartbeat. And then we have Nadine. I am so glad we have more time with her after this story, because I thought she was such a badass here. The commander of a mercenary group called Shoreline, which her father gave to her after his passing. She's the only one who really gives the brothers a run for their money on more than one occasion. She has something to prove, so her allegiances with Rafe make sense, but it's for a far less selfish goal. And then in the side game Lost Legacy, it's along the same lines. This shorter experience follows Chloe from Uncharted 2 and 3 alongside the returning Nadine. The two are merely acquaintances to begin with, but slowly become good friends by the end of the journey. It still feels like an Uncharted game, but on a much smaller scale. It does good on giving Nadine a bit of a redemption arc without sacrificing who she was in the previous game. Even if I did think she was a little too quick to turn on Chloe because she didn't tell her that they had to rescue Sam from the bad guy this time around, I didn't think Nadine really hated Sam specifically, but it's alright. It makes enough sense for there to be conflict, and everyone makes up towards the end anyway, so it works out. Everyone puts in great performances in both stories. I have nothing negative to say on that front. I'm mad at myself for not realizing that Troy Baker played Sam earlier than I did, and I would have never realized that Laura Bailey plays Nadine in both games. She really is one of the most flexible female actresses in gaming. I only found out after watching the credit sequence. How funny is it that Abby wasn't the first big muscle lady that Laura Bailey played for Naughty Dog though, huh? Because Nadine isn't a slouch in the muscles department. She brings her guns to every gun show. Bam, bam! I did like how the historical figures in each of the treasure hunts this time around also had some bearing on the situation the present day protagonists were going through, like how Henry Avery and Thomas Tew turned on the world so they could keep the treasure all to themselves and then ended up turning on each other at the very end. I thought they were going to put Sam and Nate against each other at the very end for maximum emotional impact, but it was very fitting for it to be Rafe. And then Chloe and Nadine stop the guy who claims to have the blood of old kings from sacrificing thousands in the name of rebirth. It was all really nicely written. If you know the name Amy Hennig, you'll know she was the head writer for the first 3 Uncharted games. And look, no matter what I think of the stories themselves, those are good games. The work that Miss Hennig did for Naughty Dog should be applauded, but apparently at some point during Uncharted 4's development, she was let go from the company and all writing duties were given to Neil Druckmann, who was responsible for The Last of Us, and Josh Scherer, who has been with the Uncharted series since the beginning. For me, the Uncharted games that Amy was involved with are the weakest ones, and that doesn't mean that she's responsible for that, but the statement stands. The characters are put in the spotlight more so than the treasure hunt in A Thief's End. The history lessons we're treated to actually have some sort of meaning to our protagonist situations. The relationships that hold these expeditions up are put to the test in interesting ways, and these 2 games just feel like the first true sequels we've had in 3 games. Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy blow the first 3 games out of the water as far as narrative goes, and it doesn't stop with the story. The gunplay is on another level as well. Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy are obviously 2 sandcastles made on the same beach with the same tools, meaning that just about everything made for one game is featured somewhere in the other. Not to say that they aren't distinct in locations and set pieces, but in mechanical depth, they are absolutely equal. In each firefight, the goal is to scavenge the battlefield for weapons while also doing your best to get the drop on enemies. I think they flirted with the ideas of stealth in the 3rd game, but A Thief's End just runs with it. The PlayStation 4 era was very kind to Naughty Dog and the way its games play. Playing these 2 games after playing The Last of Us Part 2, it's very easy to see the things that they share. Most notably, its stealth system. Moving around these arenas in an attempt to knock enemies out quietly is the goal, but inevitably you will get caught. And when this happens, you can choose to play it like Gears of War and just shoot your way out of the situation, but 1, you'll probably run out of ammo at that rate, and 2, it's much easier to lose the enemy's line of sight and re-enter stealth. From here, the best aspects of The Last of Us 2 can be seen, and that's not even mentioning the new verticality these environments have been given. Thanks to the inclusion of a lovely grappling hook and some retooled climbing mechanics, getting up to higher vantage points can be much more beneficial and practical. Playing these little games of cat and mouse with the enemy, running them around and finally getting the drop on them is immensely satisfying. The melee system has been re-simplified to resemble what it was in Uncharted 2, thankfully. The grabbing from 3 is completely gone, which is a plus. Melee exchanges are still dangerous if you're taking gunfire, but they don't take an hour and a half to complete on small goons. There are even some moments where brawls will break out and your buddy characters can jump in and sync up takedowns with you. It's a very small and automated thing, I know, but this type of thing is exactly how you sell basic mechanics like this. It's just flashy enough for me to stay engaged. And yeah, that might sound a little shallow, but these are a solid plus for me. In full combat scenarios, dropping down on enemies is a great way to take out even armored guys. Whether it be with a grappling hook or surprising someone from a ledge, it's great stuff. These levels do an amazing job at keeping you moving in fun ways. The level design is probably the best thing about these games, for real. I love the grappling hook, but these arenas have so many routes and possibilities built in that it's incredible. There are a few sections in both games that toy around with a bit of an open world type flavor, similar to Ellie and Dina's first day in Seattle. These are great for helping to break up the gameplay and also putting a spin on firefights by letting you choose where you want to start them from. It's a little thing, but I think it makes a big difference in giving these things replay value. One thing I particularly liked from Lost Legacy were these locked weapon crates. There were plenty to find in the open world sections, but they'll often be tucked away in these enemy encounters, and they'll hold powerful weapons if you can get them open. And easily, my favorite weapon was the silenced pistol. I don't know what took them so long to give me an inconspicuous ranged weapon in these games, but it's as amazing as you think it would be. It's not overpowered because very few enemies aren't armored up, but the few that don't have helmets can be easy pickings. There were times in intense firefights when the cover system was finicky, but it never got on my nerves thanks to the generous checkpoint system. On hard mode, the game was challenging but never frustrating. I think most of my deaths were due to me trying to do some cool stuff that was way more dangerous than I should have attempted, but once I actually focused and stopped goofing around, the challenge was totally fair. The set pieces in both games were fantastic, especially in 4. I think that's the one place 4 beats out Lost Legacy. Some of these little special events are amazing in both gameplay and spectacle, and my lord, the graphical fidelity here blows my mind. What a beautiful game this is. For it to have come out at the beginning of the PS4's life cycle, it still has some great looking environments. Of course, I say that playing the PC version with the graphic settings cranked to max, but still, this is a remarkable looking game. Uncharted 4 is a keeper though, man. I'm tempted to tell people to just skip the first 3 games and jump straight into this collection, but there are some backstories they'll miss out on, but that same backstory could be learned with a few YouTube videos. I'd say if you want something that's great to watch and also play, you get the Uncharted Lost Legacy collection. The combat has passable gunplay and movement mechanics, but the level design really ties it all into a fantastic experience. The climbing sections are still here and they can kind of disrupt the pace with the whole scary, precarious breaking of whatever I jump to thing, but it's par for the course with these AAA games nowadays. The story is engaging and entertaining the whole way through, and I think that's due to the focus we put on our central protagonist this time. It's an actual story with characters I want to see develop and go on a journey, and I don't think I could say that about the first 3 games. If you're looking to get into the series, I would say play 4 if you're unsure you're gonna vibe with it, but if you're thinking you dig it from what you've already seen, go ahead and play everything but 3. I really don't think you need to play Uncharted 3. But at the end of the day, you gotta make that call, my man. I just hope you like whatever Nathan Drake adventure you decide to go on. Thank you so much for watching. I hope all of you who have been commenting on that old Uncharted video telling me that 4 is exactly what I wanted back then got your dopamine rush, because yeah, you were right. I'm glad I finally got to see what all the hype was about for this game, and even Lost Legacy in some ways. I would honestly be okay if the Uncharted series continued every so often as these small spin-off games featuring the side characters, since Nate is essentially retired now. But oh well, we shall see. And even if it's been revealed that Amy Hennig is working on that Captain America and Black Panther game, I still have high hopes for it. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. As for what's next for this channel, I'm going to attempt to get a video for God of War 2018 out before the cascade of new games comes out in the next few weeks. We've got Sonic Frontiers, we've got God of War Ragnarok, we've got Evil West, and so many more cool games, and plenty more in my backlog that I still want to get to. So I hope you'll stick around if that sounds like fun. I would love to have you here. And I'm sorry if I sound sick while this video is still going on. Sort of getting over it. I thought this was the best time to record it. I don't sound absolutely terrible, so, you know, I apologize if that got on your nerves. But anyway, I appreciate you for watching and putting up with my stuffy nose. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.